You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting
And a pleasant good afternoon to anyone who is tuning in as we are in the beginning stages of our practice session here at the official Formula 4 Championship done by the Jamaica Simulation Racing Association. We currently have drivers from all over the world. We welcome you all to sit back, relax, and enjoy the racing as we see the drivers push the limits of their FIA Formula 4 car around the circuit of Virginia International Raceway. We are currently along Cayman driver Ian Lance Charlery, who currently has the fastest lap on the timing sheet so far, but this is only 32 minutes in the server. We should expect the times to drop a little bit as the track comes into a little bit more and it's rubbered down. So we are expecting maybe about the mid 148s, 140 or low 148s by the session qualifying. So a lot to happen, and we just ask that you will be patient and enjoy the early stages of our practice session. Good evening to anybody in the European section of the world, as well as anybody who's around the world that is currently tuning in. We are happy to have you. Unfortunately, we did have a few technical difficulties since last night, so we did not get to iron through everything in time, but that being said, we are still live and chopping. So half an hour to go in this practice session, then we will have a 20-minute qualifying session followed by a 40-minute sprint. The cars do come with enough fuel to last them for the full 40 minutes and a little bit beyond. However, the tires, especially in these conditions, might not be lasting, so we might be seeing a few drivers jumping or diving into the pits at some stage in the race to see if they can push through and catch back up or make some moves. So strategy will be in play. We have done our testing on this servo or on this track and with these cars. So we are expecting the drop off to be relatively high, especially with 76 degrees track temperatures. So very excited to see what is to come, and we will be back with you momentarily. But in the meantime, please enjoy the scenic views of the Virginia International Raceway. We will see a few drivers from all around the Caribbean, as well as Mr. Ian there gets off of the racing line as quickly as possible. But we will just follow along with a few other drivers. But yes, that being said, we do have a lot of drivers from across the globe, including the Caribbean. We have a few drivers from the Cayman Islands, our friends here, Julian and Ian Lance, as well as Alessandro, representing from the Cayman Islands, as well as we should see some drivers from Trinidad and Tobago, our friends Dominic Charles, who has not made it in as yet, as well as Peter Arundel, and a few more to come. And then representing for Jamaica is Mark Anthony Eaton, Matty Titus, Mission Wallace, Kurt Moss, Jaden Harrison, Chad Dillon, Anthony McName, and a few more to come as the practice session goes on. So at this point, we do ask you to just sit back, relax, enjoy the festivities as the times are dropping. We did notice most times being about 51, 52, and the top three now boasting the 150.5 and lower. So the track is rubbering down as the drivers are going through and round about the circuit. It should also be noted that the track conditions have begun at 85%. So the more driving that these drivers do will result in a drop or faster lap times eventually as the race goes on. So you will see the track get a little bit darker here and there, and you will see the times drop. So it's just about how many laps they can get through each session, because it does carry over through practice to qualifying to the race. But that being said, again, we have about 30 minutes remaining in this practice session. Good morning, good evening, and good night to anybody who's tuning in from all around the world. And we are excited to have you on board with us for our first official Formula 4 and iRacing event. I do apologize for the slight stuttering here and there, but we will be getting all of those things sorted out in the week to make sure that for the next few rounds we will have everything up to standard and up to par as we typically do here at the JSRA. This is a 6-round series. We are starting at Virginia International and we will go all the way up until July 7th, which is Spa. So please stay tuned to our social medias at JSRA Official, and we will run a few programs so that if there are anybody, or if there is anybody that wants to take part in these races, we do invite you all to join. We do believe in clean, close, and hard racing. It's been our mantra from the start. Competition is fun, but clean competition is better. So any inquiries, please feel free, shout us up at the JSRA official on Instagram, and we look forward to seeing you out on track and beyond. And as always, we just want to take the moment to shout out a few folks there, namely Mr. Gunter of the JMMC. I see you in the chat, and as always, sir, it is a pleasure to have you in our streams to spectate and see what is happening and what the quality of racing that the not only the Jamaicans but sim racing can bring to the public. I know we've had the disputes of it being deemed a quote unquote a video game, and it's more of a, it's just for fun, but it's always a blessing to see that, our sport that we take so, we believe in so immensely is looked at, and the JMMC, luckily, and again, it's a blessing that they saw that this is not just a video game, but this is something of high quality and of something that can be recognized as a true motorsport. So as always, we would like to take a moment to just give them a quick shout out, and our title sponsors for our main event on Saturday's the Ceramic here, one of the leading ceramic coating organizations in Jamaica, who were one of the first businesses out here to actually look at us and really reach out and say, all right, this is something that they want to get on board with. So as always, we would just like to thank them for their continued support, as well as Emmanuel Boutique, Real Clothes for Real Women, our first official sponsor, as well as Sportsmax, who we are streaming to live on the Sportsmax app. So as always, thank you all for the support. We are looking forward to a continued growth in both the sport in Jamaica, in the Caribbean, and even in the world. So always a pleasure to have these businesses who really see the quality and the vision that we've had and share. So as we continue, we are on board with Mr. Mission Wallace now. His fastest time slightly off pace with a 152.359 being his best so far. But as we said earlier, the times should be dropping as we go along. The numbers should increase as well. We should see a few more persons entering into the servo as the qualifying session nears. But 22 minutes remaining. We should have two drivers from the United States, one being a racer here locally, Joshua Brady, and he took part in our first official FIA invitational from the DAU Ukrainian League Solo GT3 Endurance League, and that was an amazing feat done by him and his teammate Mr. Jaden Harrison at the time, who both pulled out Jaden did pull out a couple podium and top 10 finishes, which brought us straight up to second position to finish in the championship. So that was an amazing feat by those drivers. And another shout out is to the DAU Racing League, who I am noticing a few of their drivers entering from. So we did have a Vassal and a Thor Tulloch, one racer that we did partake in the GT3 session with. So somebody that we know is relatively very quick. We did find fighting him up in the top three on many occasions, so definitely looking forward to see what he can bring with the Formula 4 cars this afternoon. But yes, exciting stuff to be had. Vasil Faramets is now in the server as well, and again another Ukrainian taking part this week, so very excited to see what he can bring. And our first time viewing Mr. Dominic Charles, who I think is making his debut here in the Formula 4s. One of the faster drivers in the Caribbean of Trinidad and Tobago. As we've dubbed him, his counterpart, Mr. Mikhail Charles, who is typically in our Friday and Saturday series, the Caribbean Touring Car Championship and the Chase for Pace series on a Saturday. Unfortunately, will not be making it for this championship. He does have iRacing, but will not be able to make it at on the time stated. So we will not be seeing him come on board for this series, unfortunately. But Dominic Charles, now one we've dubbed an alien himself, should be up in the top split, making his way through and fighting with the likes of Ian Lance, who will be representing Cayman Islands in the FIA Motorsports Games in October. So excited to have Ian here, a good friend of ours here at the JSRA. We've raced with him in prior leagues in both Assetto Corsa Competizione as well as Assetto Corsa, but he did make his strides moving into the iRacing platform. So when he heard that we moved on, he was very, very excited as he was pushing that Formula 4 car to the point where it's literally sliding into the corner. So very excited to see what he will be doing, as he does currently pose the fastest lap of the session with a 150.091, slightly faster than both Mr. Peter and Kurt and Jaden Harrison, all a few tenths behind. So a lot to happen, a lot to come. We are noticing the grid filling out more and more as the time elapses. We do notice Dominic Charles, as I stated, and Thor Tullo now making their way into the server. So a lot to happen, and 20 minutes of practice remaining, followed by another 20 minutes of qualifying, followed by a 40-minute sprint. There is no mandatory pit, and we should be seeing a lot of strategy being played. The track temperatures are about 76 degrees So it is a huge toll on the tires, as there goes Aeon Lance on Vassal of Ukraine. So we should see a lot happening as the race goes along. Very excited to see what's to happen. Peter there, right behind Aeon there, maybe seeing if he can pick up a little bit of, well, not a line, because he's only a few tenths or a few hundredths off of Aeon. So these seem to be the two or the three fastest that we should be seeing. But again, the times are so close that, as we do have in the typical Friday and Saturday series, the sandbags will drop as the qualifying session comes near or draws nearer. So looking forward to what's to come with, especially, let's say, the top 8, as Mark Anthony Carlos Villavicencio of Colombia as well. Typically, we do have a little bit or a few more Colombians in our series, especially the Friday and the Saturday. But I think with the wives and the amount of racing that they've been doing here with us at the JSRA, they had to kind of pull off a little bit, as there's a little bit of contact there between Ian and Pito. But this is a practice session, so this is where the mistake should or can be made. We are expecting a high caliber of racing as the race ensues from these drivers. Everybody knows what we expect of them, and as always, very quick and very clean racers here at the JSRA and in the Caribbean and beyond. So looking forward to another session here with these drivers as the time elapses. Kurt Moss there as well, setting the new fastest lap with a 150.063, only 300ths up on Mr. Lance there. So as we did state, the track is rubbering in. Those are the typical or the faster drivers that we do notice here, but I am expecting a few more new names to be popping up. Carlos is typically very quick in the Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione platform, so I am expecting him to be in the mix eventually. I know he should be relatively excited with the talent pool that is here and showing up at the latter stages of this practice session. So yeah, as always, we are looking forward to a showcase of talent and competition, and these drivers are itching to go. All week they've been just commenting and asking questions and trying to figure out the ins and outs. Again, this is our first official iRacing event. So we are slightly new to the platform in terms of streaming. We typically stream with the Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione. We've run our tests as much as possible, and we will be continuing to try and improve the product as we go along. But that being said, we are looking forward to a very exciting 6-round series here at the JSRA moving forward. So I will give you a break of my voice as we will just listen to the beautiful sounds and acknowledge the beautiful sceneries of VIR, which again, one of our favorite tracks here at the JSRA. So it's not a coincidence that it is our first track that we are using, but definitely looking forward to the action to come. And as we draw nearer and nearer to the start of qualifying, again, it will be a 20-minute session. Jaden Harrison there, our resident alien here at the JSRA, now having the top two being Jamaicans, followed by one Ian Lance from Cayman, as well as one Peter Arundel from Trinidad. As we did state, the time should be going down more and more as the session concludes, as the track will be rubbered down more and more as the drivers go around and around the circuit. Dominic Charles as well, somebody who we are expecting to be in the top section of the standings. I am assuming he should be making his times or improving on his times as we go along there. But as soon as Ian Lance takes away that time from Jaden Harrison, guess what Jaden Harrison says? No, sir. I would like to keep that for the duration of this session. So Jaden there in his purple Formula 4 car. I think purple is one of his favorite colors. Not sure if Lewis Hamilton is his favorite driver, but he tends to have that purple in his logo and a few of his liveries here, there, and everywhere. Carlos Villavicencio parking it in the pits there, not really, I guess, just enjoying or relaxing for the next 10 minutes. This is a fixed setup. So qualifying has a fixed setup of 10 liters of fuel for 3 laps, or roughly 3 laps. And then they can pit, refuel, and come back out. But the race has a fixed amount of 30 liters, which should last the duration of the race and a little bit more. There's no changes that can be made to the cars here this afternoon, so any driving is strictly predicated on skill and nothing more. It's not about who has the best setup, as we've seen in prior leagues and events that we've hosted. This race will be strictly done and predicated on driver mod, as we do call it here at the JSRA. So currently 18 drivers in, the fastest time being a 149.03, only 400ths up on the car behind, which is Ian Lance, and then Kurt Moss there again, another 600ths behind, or sorry, let's say about another 600ths down on the car ahead. And then Peter Arundel is not too far off, so the times should be relatively close. Again, the sandbags will be dropped in the latter stages of qualifying. I am assuming that the drivers will be going down a little bit lower. Track time still relatively high, so not sure how much lower these times will. The assumed time was about a 1:48 mid, but at this rate we're looking at maybe a low 1:49 during the qualifying session, or 1:49 mid, depending on how much the track will be changing. The beauty of iRacing as well is that the conditions are not stagnant, so down to the cloud level will affect how the tires operate, how the fuel will be burning. It's literally a simulation, and that is the beauty of it. So we are very excited to see how this race will go moving forward. But 8.5 or 8.25 minutes remaining, and we are on board Thor Tulo of Ukraine. Again, very quick in the GT3 class in the DAU solo endurance series that we did take part in a few months ago. So he is now roughly about a second off of the leader. We should see the times drop as Mr. Lance there puts in an even faster time there, going a 10th up on Jaden Harrison. So clearly these two having a little ego battle, maybe not even ego, but more of a mind games battle to kind of say, hey, yeah, you think I have the fastest, you're the fastest, here, test me. So we should be seeing the times drop more and more, as we did state 149 mid, and there goes Jaden Harrison. So these two enjoying themselves out there. Track grip is improving. The drivers should be feeling more and more as the session goes. But 7 minutes to go, roughly 5 laps. Let's stay tuned and see what qualifying will be. Kurt Moss there, as always, as well, should be one of the drivers to drop the times as he goes along. Car number 823. That's been his number since I've known him for the past 3 or 2 years. So excited to see him as he comes on for the sessions to follow. So at this point, most drivers are just enjoying or relaxing and waiting for the qualifying session to begin. Right now, riding on board Julian Narcisse of Cayman, who is Ian Lance's teammate for this championship. So very excited to see what he can bring to the table. This is a two-team championship, as well as most drivers have already selected their teammates, and some have just entered solo, like Carlos Villavicencio. So he might have another teammate coming in on the latter stages of the championship. It is open to all to join as long as they register in our Discord channel. So as long as persons want to, please feel free. Again, reach out to us on our official social media options, both Instagram and Discord, as well as TikTok, or TikTok as the young folks call it. So yes, expecting more and more drivers to fill out the grid as we go along. There are a few registered who are not on the servers yet. I am getting a few messages of them trying to reach back in time for qualifying. So we hope to see them, but at the moment, 18 drivers all fighting it out. The times are varying between 149 and as far as a 153. So the times should be relatively close, but as it stands right now, there should be about 3 races to be had during this the 40-minute session. Again, the typical sandbaggers will be out and about. Dominic Charles there now getting a hold of his car. Somebody again very quick there of Trinidad in that red Formula 4 car. So we are expecting him to have his time drop. But this is his debut. This is his debut of the championship or Formula 4. And ladies and gentlemen, you will notice that the liveries have been updated. Not sure what took so long. I've been trying to work on it behind the scenes, but luckily I do have very talented and multifaceted drivers here at the JSRA to kind of help to guide me. So as you will notice, the liveries have been updated and we should see the drivers, well, as always, they will be updating it as the weeks go along, but you should see the sponsored liveries of the different drivers popping up one by one by one. I'm very excited to see that, but by next week we should have everyone back up to par and ready and waiting. So as there is only 30 seconds remaining, persons who are, or the or the cinco of the drivers here and behind will be on their final lap. So this should be their fastest lap if they are not sandbagging, or their last lap of the practice session. Qualifying will begin momentarily and the times will be dropping 1:49.7 as the fastest time so far. I'm going to assume that we should reach to the lower section of the 49s, maybe the 1:48 highs. So only time will tell. Time has elapsed, so once they pass the finish line, oh, and there we go. So qualifying has begun and the drivers should be heading out one by one now to start their session. Right, as you should see them pouring out of the pits there to get their qualifying lap started. As we have Kurt Moss, Mr. Massive himself, leading the pack this afternoon. A Jamaican currently residing in New York, one of our faster drivers here at the JSRA, somebody who never misses unless time just does not permit, but somebody who's committed to the cause here at the JSRA, one of my favorite drivers. And that's not to sound biased or anything, but just somebody who's fully committed to the cause. Will be setting the first lap of the session, 18 or 19 minutes out of 20 minutes to go, and we will just ride along with Mr. Massive here as he takes to the circuit to see if he can be the first person to put it on pole. The key drivers to look out for this afternoon for that top step is Mr. Ian Lance, Jaden Harrison, Dominic Charles, Thor Tullo, Kurt Moss, and Peter Arundel. Those five are the fastest. Even a Mark Anthony Eaton to just throw a little wrench in the screw and mess up a few persons' lap and hopes for that top step. A slight lock up there on the right front by Mr. Massive. Again, they do have roughly about 3 laps of fuel, so we are noticing a gap being built behind him and the cars behind. Not sure if that's a case of just some doing a little bit of fuel saving, because that gap is relatively high. But that being said, the lap has just begun. Kurt Moss now sets to start his first flyout of the session. as Mr. Massive there leads up into the final section. Does set his fastest lap, and again, as stated before, the times will be dropped and the sandbags will be taken out as Mr. Kurt Moss sets his first and the fastest lap so far of a 1:49.683. We should see the times coming in quick and fast as the drivers will be coming along. Dominic Charles there with a 1:51.299, so not the fastest lap out there, but does sit in P3. That position should be taken up relatively quickly. Carlos Villavicencio now in P2 with a 1:50.49. We will take a brief look at Mr. Peter Arundel, who is coming around the back stretch. So he is somebody who we are looking to be in the fight for the podium spot. Between him, Mr. Ian Lance, but Oswin Wilson there now putting that car in P5 with a 1:51.6. Again, pole time will be low 1:49s or mid. Kurt Moss there throwing a little bit of mischief there because he was not in the 1:49s in the practice session, so clearly had the sandbags in and waiting ready to throw and mix up the field with the top three. The fastest time in practice was a 1:49.7, but please be reminded that the track grip did begin at 85% and will be going down as the drivers go through each corner, each lap, and make their way through. But Peter Arundel there with a 1:50.292. Ian Lance and Jaden Harrison yet to set their indicative time, so looking out for what they will come with in these stages of the race. Ian Lance there just coming out of the pits, so clearly had a little brief intermission for himself to prepare for qualifying. 14 minutes to go. Kurt Moss now on provisional pole with a 1:49.683. Jaden Harrison there coming around to see if he can make a little bit of, or give a little bit of input there. But Peter Arundel now sitting in P2 with a 1:50.292. As stated earlier, Carlos Villavicencio, normally somebody in the top split of our races, now putting that car in P3. Little bit of commentator's curse there for Peter Arundel as he comes around the double right hander and makes it and puts a foot wrong, loses out. But now Jaden Harrison there in P4 with a 1:50.337, 5 thousandths off of the car ahead. So that is his first lap. I'm expecting his time to drop down a little bit more. Ian Lance now we can take a brief look at, as he should be on his first flying lap of the session, so very excited to see what he will bring to the table. Ian definitely going to be fighting for that top step of the podium between him, Mr. Peter Arundel, Kurt Moss, and Jaden Harrison. But Carlos there definitely seeing if he can throw a little mix to the party and throw in a little bit of extra juice into the top three. Ian is car number 824, Kurt Moss car number 823. So will that be the order of the final standings heading into this sprint race here at the JSRA? But as Ian comes around the final corner to see if he can set his lap and take away that pole position from Mr. Massive there, as he does set, oh, my apologies, that was his out lap. So this will be his fastest lap coming in now. Mark Anthony Eaton, however, still yet to put an indicative time. We'll wait and we'll watch to see what happens there. Dominic Charles now P9. Reese now relegating Thor, Oswin, and Dominic down 3 positions. So Reese does take P6. Reese of America, the United States of America, a good friend of ours, and he did help us out with the testing of the servos in the starting stages of the preliminary stages of the JSRA's first iRacing event. So very excited to see what he can and will do in these stages of the race. But as it stands, Kurt Moss in P1, Peter Arundel there taking P2, and Carlos Villavicencio in P3. Ian Lance now should be the one to kind of throw a little or stir a little bit of curry in the pot. So as we do follow on board with him, would love to see where he will be ending up. As Mr. Harrison now comes around to set his next flyout and does not improve, we will follow along with him as the race or the qualifying session ensues. But at the moment, we are on board Mr. Ian Lance as he does come up to a little bit of traffic onto that final chicane there. Right, comes around the final corner. Will he get a little bit of draft there to see if he can push himself up? But Peter Arundel now in first place to take that position from Mr. Kurt Moss with a 149.6, and Ian now to take that second position from Kurt Moss with a 149.628. So 600ths in front of Mr. Massive there. Jaden Harrison there must be kicking himself and saying, all right, no, I need to pick up my slack and see if I can get back my top step of the podium. Thor Tullo, as stated earlier, from the DAU Ukrainian League, does take P4 away from Carlos Villavicencio as well. So we'll be looking to stamp his dominance here. He did or was very or extremely fast there in the DAU series, so excited to see his level of talent here at the JSRA, representing Dominic Charles now in P7 with a 150.362. times are slowly coming down. As we did state, the time or the pole position would be about a 149 mid or lower. I am as well expecting Mr. Ian Lance to drop that time even closer and closer and closer as the time elapses. We have reached to the half-point mark in this qualifying session. Peter Arundel now on provisional pole. Mark Anthony Eaton finally putting a time in, now sits P5 with a 1 minute 50.131. I think that's his best time of today. I know he has seen the 140s in the cooler temperatures, most of these drivers as a matter of fact. So Mark Anthony and Jaden, who are two drivers of the JSRA, should be well, they are on team this evening or this afternoon, depending on where you are watching in the world. But yes, they are now sitting in P5 and P6. Carlos Villavicencio now fighting his way through to see if he can improve, and does not improve on his best time. Kurt Moss there now trying to see if he can even improve. But as it stands, Peter Arundel, Ian Lance, and Kurt Moss, so three different countries, four in the top four. We're seeing two Jamaicans on the top three or the podium, and now only sitting one there on the podium. So 8 minutes remaining to go. Who will be the victor of this session? We should also note, however, that drivers will be receiving points from the qualifying session depending on where you end up for the top 5 positions. So yes, it is incentivized. Yes, I know you might have more race pace than quali, but it is or will be incentivized for you to place in the top 5. And as we stated, Peter, Ian, Kurt, Thor, and Mark Anthony currently holding that top 5 position in qualifying, as we do see some drivers there going extremely wide, trying to see if they can, well, I'm not going to say they're trying to get as much time there as possible, because you will be utilizing too much and losing and scrubbing speed there. But Kurt Moss now looking to take back that position. Jaden Harrison now with a 149.720. That's his fastest lap of the day. Again, the time should be dropping down as we go along, but Kurt Moss there looking very good as he comes and rallies around to the final corner to head down the back or the front straight right by the pit boxes there. But does he improve? No, he does not. So Ian still holding that second position. Peter as well of Trinidad to hold that P1 position, but no, as stated earlier, the times will be dropping. 149.2 by Ian Lance of Cayman Islands now takes the provisional pole with 6 minutes remaining. Will we see the 148? The track grip is improving as we go along, so I am looking definitely to see the times drop. Jaden Harrison now does see that the times can go that low, but does make a little mistake there and goes spinning. So 5 minutes remaining, ladies and gentlemen. Who will be the victor here to take the top step? But as it looks, Mr. Lance there of Cayman Islands definitely enjoying that 4/10 gap to the car behind of Peter Arundel, who will be the victor. That being said, Mark Anthony Eaton now relegated to P7. Dominic Charles still on track, trying to see if he can scrub that extra 10th or a couple tenths there now, almost a second off of pole position. Again, this is his debut in the Formula 4 car, so we will be expecting to see his time drop as the series continues. 5 rounds after this one, 6 rounds in total. There will be one drop race. So the drivers who will be missing in action for today, unfortunately, will be able to capitalize if they make it to the next 5 rounds. There are 3 paid tracks. We will be visiting Road America Sebring Raceway. One of my favorite, but we'll get to that soon. Okayama Circuit, Tsukuba, and as we stated, the Spa-Francorchamps, and the final race of the series. So expecting a lot of action here. 3 paid, 3 free, and 1 drop race. So we should see a lot to come in the next few Sundays. We will not have a break week, so we will go back to back and see the action conclude, and the fighting will be amazing. As even again, we didn't see it in practice, but Thor Tuller there setting his fastest lap so far with a 1:50. So the times are separated by mere tenths from P8 all the way down to P1. Obviously, Ian there stamping his authority there with the 149.2, but we should be seeing the times. I'm going to assume that should be the pole position time for this afternoon, but we will watch it as we go along. The fight is now on for P2 and P3 to start this 40-minute sprint session. Who will be the victor? And as we typically see in Formula One, drivers leaving it until the last minute or two there. Peter Arundel going out for his, what I will assume will be his last and final flying lap, as he is currently on his out lap. However, with 2 minutes in a session, he should be passing the line with not enough time to start a second. So we will see if he has what it takes to compete with Mr. Ian Lance for that pole position. But as it stands now, Kurt Moss has already gone out, and with enough fuel for at least 3 laps, will be trying to dethrone Mr. Lance there, as well as Mr. Harrison. So the fight for the podium is still very much so on. Kurt should have 1 more lap after this, barring he has enough fuel, and does come around to set his last lap, which is an improvement, but unfortunately not enough to improve and take that second position. But the car will be lighter. He will be pushing it now for his final lap to see if he can dethrone Mr. Peter or Mr. Lance there for that top step or second position. But guess what? Jaden Harrison still in the hunt. He was one of the faster drivers in the practice session, does use the draft, but is in a little bit of traffic there by who I'm assuming is Carlos Villavicencio. Will they? Yes, it is, but will he inhibit that lap for Mr. Harrison? Mr. Harrison should or might have a second lap there in him. So Carlos does put a foot wrong there, does not seem to mess up Jaden's lap in any way, shape, or form. So Jaden, having a little bit of draft, should have gained a little bit of tense here or there. Will he be able to improve on his lap? Mr. Massive putting a foot wrong, unfortunately, and will not be improving. Peter now starting his flying lap, so we will pay attention to him sooner than later. Eon seems to be in the pit and is just comfortable there with his lap and saying, hey, nobody will be able to pass me here for the rest of this series. But Jaden Harrison now rallies around the final corner for his or the conclusion of this lap, but will he be able to improve? Peter there, I'm seeing a yellow flag, not sure, and Jaden does improve, but guess what, ladies and gentlemen, does not improve enough to dethrone Mr. Kurt Moss. Jaden now as well going off there, so will not be able to start another flying lap. So the top 5 all basically out of contention to dethrone Mr. Lance for that top step of the podium. But Carlos Villavicencio now on his final lap, so he should be the only person remaining to try and dethrone the top step or any of the 4 ahead of him, currently in P5, and Mark Anthony as well in P7. So those are the 2 to fight, but as it stands, it seems as if Mark has backed out and will be making his way into the pits. So the only person remaining to really fight for that top step or top podium position is Mr. Carlos Villavicencio of Colombia in that interestingly colored Formula 4 car driver number 2 there. Will he be able to dethrone any of the few ahead? That is Mr. Chad Dillon, who is typically the host with the most. So apologies that he will not be blessing the commentary streams of this afternoon and this evening, but will be on track to bless the track and see if he can stamp his position here, because he is definitely preparing himself to partake in the FIA Motorsports Games, granted, as well as long as he is able there to make his stamp. But no, Carlos does head into the pits. But guess what? Anthony McName, Mr. Michael McName, his favorite driver being Lewis Hamilton. I know his favorite series here is Formula Series, so does find himself to put his Formula 4 car in the top 5 and will be receiving that final top 5 position from qualifying, and is now sitting comfortably with a 149.8. So again, sandbags have been out there. Oswin Wilson of Guyana is also trying to see if he can improve on his time, but his times have not been too indicative of the top split this afternoon. As always, somebody very clean, very fast, and very competitive. But this is his first time out on the iRacing platform, so as always, happy to have him on board. But ladies and gentlemen, that does bring this session to a conclusion. The only person remaining, it seems, is Mr. Dominic Charles, is it? But oh no, it is not. So as it stands, ladies and gentlemen, with 2 minutes remaining as cool down just for the drivers to prepare and relax and get ready, there is a 40-minute session to be had. Ian Lance now on pole, Peter Arundel of Trinidad in P2, Kurt Moss in P3, Jaden Harrison and Anthony McName in P4 and P5. The top or the latter 3 from the top 2 being Jamaicans, followed by Carlos Villavicencio of Colombia and followed by Thor Tillo of Ukraine, Mark Anthony Eaton P8, Dominic Charles of Trinidad and Tobago in P9, Mission Wallace in P10, Reese of the United States of America in P11, Oswin Wilson of P12 of Guyana, Chad Dillon of Jamaica, Vasil of Ukraine, Kimani Eastman there of Jamaica, Alessandro de Felice of Cayman Islands, Julian Narcisse of the Cayman Islands, Matthew Titus to rally the top 8 or the 18 and the final positions of the race. This will be a standing start, ladies and gentlemen. Ian Lance, as stated earlier, will be in P1. As you do notice, that beautiful pace car unfortunately will not be used this evening or this afternoon, but we will have our standing start. 20 seconds to go, ladies and gentlemen. Please enjoy. And racing will begin in a moment's time, and it is green flag racing. Ian Lance with the best start there, but Peter Arundel already pushing through, see if he can make his way to overtake, but Kurt Moss there slept on the line. Not sure what happened there for him, but he was immediately overtaken by Jaden Harrison, who is already putting the pressure on Peter Arundel there for P2. So they're all looking to see who can make the moves. But Jaden Harrison there already on the inside of Peter Arundel to take that second position and is currently on the hunt there for Ian Lance. Peter Arundel now P3. Thor Tillo of Ukraine is now P4. Anthony McNames does hold position in P5, and Kurt Moss is the biggest loser to lose that third position. Now sits in P3 of this race. Jaden Harrison now 6/10 off. But the racing has commenced, ladies and gentlemen. It's already been a dramatic start. There will be no mandatory pits here this evening, so we are looking forward to a lot of action. Drivers will be strategizing to see where they can come back into the fold. But there goes Mr. Ian Lance now using this opportunity. All right, Jaden, you and Peter already fought it out. I will try and pull a gap now. Currently 1 second between P1 and P2, but between P3 all the way to P7, the gap all within 1 second of each other. Carlos already there trying to see if he can make a move on Mr. Michael or Anthony McName in P5. Thor Tillo is in P4, sorry, and is just enjoying that position there as mistakes were made. A relatively clean start to this race. Again, it was a very unusual start there for Mr. Massive, but there goes Thor Tillo on Peter Arundel to see if he can make the move. Again, we did state that he is very fast with the GT3s and clearly finding the pace here on the inside of Peter Arundel. So he does make that move stick and moves up into the final podium position. And Anthony McName now putting the pressure on the Trinidadian of Peter Arundel there in P4. So what will be to happen? But Carlos Villavicencio there was some incident, unfortunate for him there, and does re-enter the track slightly unsafe. We'll definitely look to see what had happened there as we take a quick replay as Carlos just comes around and loses the back end of that car. So not sure why or how, but unfortunate there for Carlos there. But as it stands, Ian Lance 1 second ahead of Jaden Harrison in P1, P2. Thor Tillo making his move to move up into P3, with Peter Arundel not giving up his position. That that easily, but already under attack by Anthony McName there, heading into the fast left-hander, into the next corner, coming into the final sector. But Anthony McName already putting some pressure there on Peter Arundel now, who started P2 but now fighting for his life between P6, P5 and P4, and still trying to be in contention for P3. But Thor now using this as his opportunity to just get away as quickly as possible. But Kurt Moss there putting the pressure there on Anthony McName. See if he can make back his runs into this championship and see if he can get back into the top split of this series. But again, now Mark Anthony Eaton, him even peeking his head and catching back up due to the fighting there between the three ahead of him. So who will be the victor of this, of the best of the rest? The top three now separated by a few, by let's say 2 seconds, and then the next few behind now fighting it out to see who can get the best of the rest. Peter Arundel in P4, Anthony McName in P5, and Kurt Moss in P6, 0.5 seconds off between the three ahead. Jaden Harrison there though, not letting Eon breathe, as Jaden did set the fastest lap of the race so far with a 1:49.7, so definitely putting the pressure there on Eon to not let him breathe too easily. And it's currently only 7/10 off of Eon Lance of the Cayman Islands, but Anthony McName 3/10 up or off of Peter Arundel of Trinidad in front of him. So again, not letting him sleep either. Currently a 10th off of the car in front. Peter does hug the inside line and says, "No sir, you will not have it here." But Kurt Moss just just lurking in the rear view to see if he can maybe pick up on a point here, there, or anywhere. But 34 minutes, only 5 minutes has elapsed so far, so a lot more action to be had as the race ensues. Jaden Harrison now 5/10 off of the race leader, and will be seemingly trying to put the pressure, maybe force a mistake, but did run a 1:49.731 the lap previous, and on the final, on the lap just there, did set a 1:49.755. So his pace is the fastest on track at the moment, and trying to put the pressure there on Mr. Eon Lance and pressuring Mr. Lance, who did, yes, ladies and gentlemen, set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:49.2 and is now in the 1:50.071 on his last lap, and that has been his best lap of the session so far. So we will monitor that gap. But Kurt Moss and Anthony McName there still putting the pressure there on the Trinidadian of Peter Arundel in that red, black and white Formula 4 car. And that very interesting, well, I was going to say Brazilian themed Formula 4 car, but there goes Eon Lance in the dirt. Not sure what happened there. Let's take a quick look to see what happened. Was there an incident between him, or was the pressure just too much, as he did just lose the rear there, and Jaden Harrison to capitalize as much as possible, pulling a 2-second gap there now on Thor Tillo, and Eon Lance right ahead of Peter Arundel, Anthony McName and Kurt Moss. So the fight is now on for that third and second position. Ladies and gentlemen, the action has just started and is already turning out to be a very lucrative race here, with the top 5 or top 6 there fighting, and all within almost milliseconds of each other. Who will be the victor, as Anthony McName again putting that car and does hug the inside of the racing line now to put some pressure, but now it goes 3 wide with Kurt Moss saying, "Hey, if you guys are going to fight, I'm going to put my nose in there as well." But Anthony McName now does seem to make the move stick, does now host the outside line, with Peter Arundel under pressure, trying to hold off as best as possible, but now losing out as well to Mr. Kurt Moss. The fighting has begun, and Anthony McName now does take P4 position, 1 second off of Eon Lance, and the fight is on between these three. But who will be the victor? There's still a lot of time to be had and a lot of action to ensue. Kurt Moss now seeing if he can take the best of the rest position and even possibly take back that final podium position. Times are still very, very close. And will we see more moves, more mistakes? 30 minutes to go, and I am only just beginning to lose my voice. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back with the action. And we are back with the action. Thor is now under pressure by Ian Lance, who is definitely not looking to lose out fully on that final, or see if he can even close back that gap to Jaden Harrison and hope that Jaden can either lose some grip in those tires. But Ian will be putting the pressure on Thor to see if he can get past and get back that second position. It is 6 rounds plus 1 drop race, so who will be the victor at the end of this series? But clearly someone who we thought did have this race maybe not under lock but was the biggest challenger is now under threat for that top step by Jaden Harrison. Thor Tulla of Ukraine now holding on and will have a very long 30 minutes to defend against these drivers. Just taking a quick look now is Dominic Charles now putting a little bit of pressure there on Michelle Wallace to see if he can get some fighting done and make some moves going down. Again, this is his debut here at the JSRA and in the Formula 4 cars, but again the fighting between Thor and Ian has ensued. An overtake has been made and Ian is now in P2 as the fight between Dominic and Michelle ensues, and now Oswin Wilson is in the mix of Guyana, so he will be looking to see if he can, make a little change here, there, everywhere, and see if he can get into the mix and the fold. But that being said, Thor is not giving up on that second position. As we said, he was very quick in the DAU GT3 series, so I am expecting a very high class and caliber of racing, or high caliber racing from him, to see if he can get back that position from Mr. Ian. But Ian is not somebody to relinquish his position very easily, so he will have that bright orange Ukrainian right in the rear view of his his Formula 4 race car. So who will come of it? And Kurt Moss now looking under a little bit of threat there by Anthony McName. I'm sure he was hoping that Anthony will just back off a little bit and let's use each other, catch back up to the 2 ahead, and then we can fight it out at the latter stages. But Anthony there putting as much pressure as he can possibly put to see if he can get that best of the rest position. But 2/10 up is Mr. Lance there, and Anthony McName does seem to not sure what happened, as there was an incident there. Let's take a quick look. As again, the same position every single time. Drivers are just losing it right at that double handle. But unfortunate there for Kurt Moss, just losing the grip on the rear of that Formula 4 car, and is now relegated all the way down to P9. Thor Tulla in P3, still fighting and seeing if he can catch back up. Peter Arundel as well, right behind this duo, and seeing if they can capitalize and catch back up. But as it stands, Jaden Harrison 2.8, almost 3 seconds ahead of Mr. Lance and Thor Tulla, and Aeon Lance now fighting it out to see if they can either push each other or let's fight it out and see who is going to get second at the end of this event. But nonetheless, Oswin Wilson, Mark Anthony Eaton, there's a trio right behind the mix of everyone. Dominic Charles under threat by Mark Anthony Eaton and Oswin Wilson. Kurt Moss 6 seconds off of them, so he will have to make his inroads back into that mix and that fight. Hopefully we'll be able to catch back up, but we know he's a very fast and consistent driver. But again, Peter Arundel in that red, black and white Formula 4 car now putting the pressure on Anthony. Anthony definitely a favorite here with his Formula 4 car. He is a surprise racer as well, because we did not expect to see him, but very much so in the mix for that battle, and the battles to unfold will be on his tips and toes to defend against Mr. Peter Arundel there in the Formula 4s. But that being said, again, still the pressure is being put on by Thor. The gap between Jaden and Aeon has been stagnant over 2.8 second gap and interval. It has not gone up, it has not gone down. It's between 2.7 to 2.9. But guess what? Thor is just there. Don't make a mistake, Mr. Lance, because I am here ready and waiting for you. But Peter as well is there fighting and hoping for his chance to see if he can get that position. Kurt Moss there losing out to Carlos Villavicencio of Colombia. So not sure if again a foot was put wrong, but Carlos definitely capitalizing there. I did not see any incidents pop up, so that looks like it was all on merit or something of maybe a little bit of loss of grip or something of the sort by Mr. Massive. But Carlos, as we know, very consistent, very quick, and somebody who is not going to give up very easily. He did have that early incident and will be making his way all the way back through the pack. But as that continues, Aeon Lance now has caught back up to Jaden Harrison. Jaden Harrison did have a slight off track there and does put Aeon Lance and Thor right back into the picture. It doesn't seem like there's an incident, so Jaden, the most that he should have to worry about at the moment is maybe his tires being a little bit dirty, but as he does go around the track, he should be cleaning those off relatively quickly, but will now have the pressure. He did have that 3-second buffer to the car behind, but now is under the pressure of Aeon Lance and Thor Tullo, so any mistakes and he may even lose 2 positions in one. But that being said, the trio are fighting it out to see who can make that or take that top step of the podium. Aeon there made a mistake early and is definitely kicking himself, but somebody who is quick and of the pace does take a quick look on the inside. Who will be the late breaker heading into the fourth to last corner, but they're going in side by side. Slight contact, and the two make contact. Thor Tullo goes off track to see if he can get around as quickly as possible, but Jaden Harrison there stuck, cannot move, and loses out. Anthony McName now being the best winner takes P2, Aeon Lance P3, and Peter Arundel there right in the mix in P4. And guess who we mentioned earlier? Dominic Charles, somebody who is typically in the top split, is now sitting in P5. Jaden Harrison P8. Thor Tullo does take the lead of the race in P1 with a 4.5 second gap, with Anthony McName in P2. Aeon Lance hounding the rear of that green, yellow, and black, green, and gold Formula 4 car, and will be definitely pushing to make that move stick as quickly as possible. 22 minutes remaining. Thor Tullo P1, Anthony McName P2, Aeon Lance P3, and Peter Arundel in P4, all separated by a few hundredths of a second or a few tenths here, there, and everywhere. Thor Tullo being the only one right now, and I'm sure will be making his way as fast as possible to build as much of a gap to get away from Mr. Lance there, and see if he can hold out for the next 22 minutes and maintain that P1 position. And there again, just peeking his nose out just to say, Anthony, I see you and I want you to see me. Anthony there with a 150.892 or 150.180 as his best lap. So currently 3/10 off of the car behind, and will be fighting it out as best as possible to see if he can maintain this gap. Does to go and try and break the toe there and hold the inside line, and will be trying to protect his position, is not looking to give it up even if he is faster or slower, and will be holding that position there, defending the inside line as best as possible. They are slightly closing the gap to Thor, but it's only by 2/10, so not enough. So the defending is going to play right into the hands of Thor Tulo. I'm sure Ian at the moment must be thinking, all right, let's not fight. Let's not fight yet. I'll take that position back eventually, but right now, let me pass and let me go for this guy, or let me just push you along and see if we can make it back to that top step, because I want that top podium position. This is my debut here and I want it. But that being said, Peter Arundel is still only 4/10 behind and watching intently to see if anybody will make that slight mistake and see if he can capitalize and get back into the podium positions. He did start on second position, my apologies, and was relegated a few positions. He was just being bullied, unfortunately, just in places where it was either there's an incident or he's going to have to just relinquish a position, and he chose the latter. So again, clean racing all throughout by these racers. They know they have the pace to fight. They know they have the consistency. So it's all about just surviving the early stages and then make your way back downtown, walking fast, and then you will be homebound. But that being said, Mark Anthony Eaton there still putting pressure there on Dominic Charles, as well as Jaden Harrison, who should be kicking himself, currently sitting in P8. These are two teammates, so they are going to be trying to capitalize as much position as possible. Dominic there holding the inside line. Mark Anthony seeing if maybe he can sweep around the outside, but there goes Mark for the quote-unquote switcheroo. Gets that much closer. Well, ladies and gentlemen, guess what? Anthony McName and Ian Lance now do switch or stop positions. So Ian did make that move stick. But as we do watch that, Peter is still in the hunt. But let's just keep a close eye there on Dominic Charles and Mark Anthony Eaton as they fight it out to see who can get that last or maintain position. My apologies. But Peter now, again, seeing if he can put that pressure on to Mr. Anthony McName there as they head into the fast left-hander. The gap to Thor is still staying at about 4.5 seconds. So will that improve as the race goes along? 20 minutes remaining. Ian should be pushing the car as you see the rear left tire of Anthony there touching the dirt and getting very dirty there. So he would have lost a little bit of grip there. But that being said, Anthony McName does seem to get the run on Ian Lance and does go for the inside, the same line that Ian did use the first time once against Jaden and the second time against Anthony. But the second time with Anthony, it did not work out as he had wanted it to. But again, that inside line does not seem to be the ideal line to get through, as you do have to slow a little bit earlier in order to make that corner. But that being said, Mark Anthony Eaton seeing if he can stay in that draft of Dominic Charles or even break it a little bit and keep those tires cool enough to see if he can mount an attack later down. Jaden Harrison did, however, make that move on Oswin Wilson and is sitting now in P7. So will he be able to hold suit? Anthony still there putting the pressure on Ian. So clearly these two are not even thinking about working together to catch back the car ahead, but instead use this as an opportunity. I want that second position. It looks a little bit too far-fetched for P1. Will they be able to, or who will be able to hold and fight it out to capitalize and catch back that second position? Peter Arundel literally just sitting there, waiting, watching, and ready to pounce as soon as one of these makes a mistake. Mark Anthony Eaton as well, 6/10 off, but Anthony McName there just refuses to leave the rear gearbox of that white Formula 4 car driven by Mr. Ian Lance himself. This is where a lot of drivers are making mistakes. So let's watch there, especially where the tires will get dirty. So definitely looking forward to what will happen in the next few stages of this race. Anthony McName P3, Ian Lance P2. The gap is still a steady 4.6 seconds. Anthony does get the run on, but not enough. Ooh, and does make the dive. Ian there had to back out, because if not, there would have been an incident, and that puts Anthony right into P2. And Ian now, again, the gap between them and P1 is just growing bigger and bigger and bigger, because they're fighting so much. But no, Ian having to back out of that one does lose a position. Maybe he's thinking at this point, all right, clearly we can't work together. So here, what? Let me just wait this out, and let's see if we just fight it out at the end. I'm not taking a chance after that dive. Let's just wait it out and see where else we can fight and capitalize on. But as it stands, Peter Arundel still there, just waiting for that mistake, waiting for that incident, for Ian and Anthony to come together. If it is to happen, hopefully that is not a commentator's curse. But there goes Peter Arundel and his countryman there. Dominic Charles comes around to see him, pointed in the same direction, and is relegated now to P6 position. Oswin Wilson should be coming around right now to capitalize and take that position right back. Jaden Harrison is now sitting in P16. Not sure what happened there, but Mark Anthony Eaton 2/10 off of the car ahead. Dominic Charles in P4, Ian Lance in P3. Mark Anthony Eaton definitely seeing if he can make that run and take that best of the rest position now from Dominic Charles. This is his debut in the Formula 4 cars. Mark has been doing his practice, but as you can see, those tires are definitely feeling the heat, the temperature, the degradation that these drivers are putting into these cars. So we should be seeing, I am seeing Dominic being a little bit more slidey as he does try to close the gap there on Mark Anthony. Mark having to back out there, maybe thinking, hey, I don't know what's going on there. I know you're not going to hit me, but that gap was closed a little bit too quickly. But the pressure is on there for Dominic Charles, the Trinidadian. And Peter Arundel, unfortunately, being the loser of that fight there between him, Ian Lance, and Anthony McName. Oswin Wilson as well, again making his debut here at the on iRacing overall, not even just at the JSRA. Typically races with us on the Friday and the Saturday race. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen, Anthony McName did lose out to Mr. Ian Lance now and is again on the hunt. Ian, at this point, the gap has built up to 5.7 seconds. So at this point, they're just having fun and going to be fighting it out until the end of this race. So 13 minutes remaining in this session. Who will be the victor? Mark Anthony Eaton again hounding that Trinidadian Mr. Dominic Charles and seeing if or where can he make or force a mistake. They will be finding themselves again leading up to the back straight. Who will come out? But again, that red Formula 4 car is just the rear end just looks very snappy. So maybe has used too much of that tire trying to defend and will be just hoping and praying and just watching the clock as it goes down and ticks and ticks and ticks, as Mark Anthony there just sends a little invitation in the left mirror of Mr. Dominic Charles just to say, hey bro, don't forget that I'm here. Car number 18, car number 19, two drivers fighting it out for the best of the rest in the top 8, top 4 positions in this championship. This is only round 1. If this is what is to continue, I am only excited for the next few rounds. Road America is to follow, followed by the fan favorite and driver favorite Sebring Raceway, which again, ladies and gentlemen, please expect some rain at some or one or two or a few of these tracks. But there goes Mark Anthony and Dominic Charles as they go side by side. Mark did have the position there for a few seconds, but unfortunately Dominic there just saying, no sir, we're side by side and that's all that you will get from me. 11 and a half minutes remaining. Who will be the victor? But Dominic Charles there putting on Fernando Alonso-esque level of defense, forcing Mark Anthony Eaton, you are not going to pass me. You are number 18, I'm number 19, but in this stage, I will finish before you. Again, making his debut with the Formula 4 cars, but again, Anthony McName there putting the pressure on Eoin Lance. And if this is how he's going to drive for this series, I am very excited. He has been missing in action in Assetto Corsa, but clearly finding his foot here in iRacing. But there goes Mark Anthony Eaton, definitely getting the run there on Dominic Charles. Can he lead himself to take that position, and does take that look on the inside? Dominic late to go and defend. Who will be the late breaker here? Mark Anthony Eaton does hold the outside, and there's contact. There's contact. Ooh, and Mark Anthony and Dominic Charles, they're losing out. Dominic should be able to get back on to track a little bit quicker, and I'm assuming we'll be waiting as you see him there, waiting on Mr. Mark Anthony. But unfortunately, it seems like he went back to the pits, and that promotes Peter Arundel back into P4, into the best of the rest position, with Oswin Wilson right there to put a little pressure, the extra pressure onto him. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen, this is not Assetto Corsa where there's no damage. Damage is there, so these drivers will be feeling every ounce and inch of it as they are fighting and driving. So unfortunate there for Mark Anthony, and I'm sure we might be hearing something of that in the stewarding room after in the debrief. But as it stands, Mark Anthony relegated now to P6 will be trying his best to hold on and see if he can even maintain or pass back Oswin Wilson. Kurt Moss now, who did have an incident early, I think two, is also in the mix. Maybe have some degradation to the tires, but that's about it. I did not see him in the walls. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen, with 10 minutes remaining, Eoin Lance has again lost out positions to Anthony McName. So Anthony again putting the pressure and saying, no, you can beat me in any other series but not in Formula. He loves this series. He loves Formula 1 racing in particular. As you see, car number 44, Lewis Hamilton, is his favorite driver. So clearly somebody to watch in this series. He's not somebody we typically end up watching in the Assetto Corsa, but definitely putting on a show here and putting Mr. Lance under some pressure. We will definitely look forward to those interviews at the end of this race. But as it stands, 8.5 minutes remaining, 5/10 off is Mr. Eoin Lance, now dwindled to 2.2 seconds off of Anthony McName, and does get the run leading into turn one. Anthony holds the inside line. Will Eoin be able to pull the switcheroo? No, he will not, as he does get a little bit of a better exit, but still Anthony parking that car in places where Eoin just cannot get by, and it's just slowing him down and messing up his line entirely. So he cannot get that run that he needs to make that move stick. But now we know Eoin is a strategist and will be thinking, all right, 8 minutes remaining. How best can I get by this gentleman in front of me? Definitely somebody who I'm not used to racing. So he is learning as he goes along. Mark Anthony Eaton 2/10 off of Oswin Wilson. Guess who's right behind Mark Anthony though? Is Kurt Moss, who is definitely looking to see if he can pounce and gain back a position here or anywhere possible. Again, ladies and gentlemen, there will be one drop race in this series, and this might very well be one for many who are either missing the race or just incident after incident. Jaden Harrison now is currently sitting in P17 in the pits, so clearly taking this race as his drop race. But Kurt Moss there, 5 tenths off of Mark Anthony. Mark Anthony 7 tenths off of Oswin Wilson, who will be 7th, 6th, and 5th are all fighting it out. Peter Arundel now is 14 seconds off of P3, so that's definitely not to be had. But the fight for the best of the rest is still there. Peter Arundel P4, Oswin Wilson P5, Mark Anthony Eaton P6, Kurt Moss P7. Kurt Moss now 2 tenths, and the gap is just dwindling slowly, little by little, as it's now under 5 tenths as Kurt is putting the pressure on Mark Anthony Eaton there, clearly feeling the effects of the damage earlier, does lose out and goes off track. And guess what? As well, Ian Lance does make that move stick. It seems as if there was a slight incident there with him and Anthony McName. We'll take a quick look, and it's Anthony McName who the tires just gave up on him, and there was contact, but it was not the fault of Ian Lance. So unfortunate there. But as it stands now, Kurt Moss sits in P6 and will be on the hunt for P5 to see if he can make that final position up a little bit out of reach of Oswin of Kurt Moss, but of Peter Arundel. But no, Oswin just gives him the position. So again, ladies and gentlemen, it is 40 minutes. The tires can last 40 minutes, but the drop off is so severe with 76 degrees out there with 45% humidity. I promise you, it is not an easy task. So even when you see these drivers making these mistakes early on, it's not a skill issue, but more that of the track just being that much more demanding. But that being said, Mark Anthony Eden again right on the rear gearbox of Oswin Wilson, the Guyanese, and seeing if he can maybe make back that position. Matthew Titus, we haven't seen much of him, but he's also 9 tenths off of the Ukrainian Vasil Faramets. So will he be able to fight it out? Chad Dillon and Reese and Zivnino are all, there is a trio battling for the 12th position, which is, ladies and gentlemen, the final points position, because points do go all the way up to 12. So there is a fight. This is not just for bragging rights, ladies and gentlemen. But Matthew Titus, now sitting in P10, 3 tenths off of Vassel, is seeing if he can put the pressure and does get a run, but no, unfortunately, does not have enough. Reese there now, seeing if he can put a little bit of pressure there on Julian Narcisse and Chad Dillon just there sitting in car number 23, seeing if he can maybe benefit from whatever is to happen in front of them. Carlos Villavicencio, though, although again 3 tenths off of P5 Kurt Moss. So the fighting is non-stop here, ladies and gentlemen, all the way to the bitter end of this race here. We've seen drama, we've seen overtakes, we've seen spins, we've seen everything as Thor Tillo currently just pulling away lap after lap after lap now with a 6-second gap. We did mention his name in the DAU GT3 series. Very happy to have him back here, we'll have him here with us and racing with him again. So exciting stuff as he does currently hold on to that P1 position. Matthew Titus there still putting on the pressure onto Thor's fellow countryman Vasil Faramets, and will be trying his best to see if he can be promoted into P10. But Chad Dillon now, it seems as if there is an incident with Reese crashing, because he is now 8 seconds off, but Chad Dillon now is promoted into P11 and makes that move stick, and is now going to be defending his life away to see if he can hold on to that P11 position. But that being said, with 3 minutes remaining, Carlos Villavicencio will be putting the pressure on Kurt Moss. Carlos Villavicencio of Nova Racing, you should know that name very much, as it should be plastered on your screen. Our friends and Moza dealers over in Colombia, friends of ours in both the Caribbean Touring Cars as well as the Chase for Pace series, entering again into another one of our events. And Carlos Villavicencio does hold the outside line. Kurt Moss there defending his life away, might run a little bit it wide there, putting himself in contention, but no holds his line, and it does hold back again the inside line to protect that position from Carlos. So we are going to be riding along with this fight for the next few minutes to see if there is a comeback to be had between Carlos Villavicencio. You can see his visor there, very dirty and very muddy. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a Assetto Corsa, so you should see the dirt being splattered over the visors of these drivers and the windshields when there are. So we will be seeing this fight it out until the last 2 minutes of this race. These two drivers only separated by a mere 2/10. Carlos very persistent, and as you would know, we will take another look at Mr. Dillon in a moment's time, but he has dubbed this the desperation zone, and this will be where we should be seeing a few dives here and there, as we even see Mr. Matty Titus there on Vasil Faramitz trying to see if he can put the pressure, but again, there goes Kurt Moss and Carlos Villavicencio. Carlos now getting the run on Kurt Moss and makes the move stick, heading in to the fast right hander, and now they move into the final sector, final 3 corners, and it's less than a minute to go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is dubbed the desperation zone for a reason. Drivers are pushing to see which position or how high they can finish in this race. This is only race 1. I'm going to need a counterpart if this is the action that we're going to be getting, because I have not stopped speaking for one moment. As Kurt Moss now takes a look on the inside, Carlos will be hugging that inside line as much as possible to make sure that Kurt Moss cannot get that position from him. And this battle will be pushing through for the rest of this series. Thor Tullo has not put a foot wrong. 19 seconds to go. This should be the final lap, ladies and gentlemen, with a 5.3 second gap on Mr. Lance behind in P2. So much drama that has had happened in the past few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. What an epic showing and debut of our Formula 4 iRacing series, but the fights are still on. Kurt Moss there still putting the pressure as much as he can possibly put onto Carlos Villavicencio as they come around the fast double right hander into the back stretch to see if he can get a run just like what Carlos did, but we will only be able to see as they come around. I'm assuming this will be it unless a foot is put wrong, but Thor Tullo is now coming around the final corner to stamp his leg of approval to take P1 in round 1 at Virginia International Raceway to win this first round of this series and this Formula 4 championship. Congratulations there to Thor, who just was consistent throughout it all. Started in P4, P5, and mistake after mistake, he just capitalized on it every single time. Followed by Ian Lance, a very epic drive from him and Anthony McName. Hats off to those two drivers. Peter Arundel as well to finish off in P4. Carlos Villavicencio does hold off to finish in P5 with Kurt Moss in P6. Mark Anthony Eaton in P7. Oswin Wilson in P8. Vasil and Matty Titus, who fought it out until the and Matty Titus fighting it out for the past few minutes there to finish off in P8, P9, and P10. Chad Dillon in P11, Julian in P12, Reese in P13, Mission Wallace in P14, Dominic Charles in P15, Alessandro in P16, Jaden Harrison in P16, and Kimani Eastman to finish it off in P17. P18, my apologies. Ladies and gentlemen, I am tired. What an epic debut. What an epic staging of racing by these drivers. I am so proud to have them on board, and we will be having interviews in a moment's time. Thank you for joining. Please stand by for the next few minutes.
this tab, which has the protest option. So you can protest. You want to give me a lap, a timestamp, a clip of what happened, describing the incident, be the case. I will do all the post-race review.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, what an epic debut in racing here at the JSRA. We do have Anthony McName, aka Michael McName, here, finishing off in P3 in his debut here at the JSRA in our first ever iRacing event. Anthony, can you hear me?
Of course, yep.
All right, so for all my life, I didn't know that your name was Anthony, so hats off to you, sir.
It's actually my middle name now because, of course, iRacing has weird ways of like naming yourself.
Right.
You get me?
Well, again, car number 44, we were discussing you as Formula being your preferred series and 44 being your favorite number because of Sir Lewis Hamilton. What an epic defense, what an epic attack there with you and Ian. Unfortunately, it seemed as if there was a loss of track grip or tire grip there heading into turn 1. Can you walk us through?
Yeah, well, I was basically nursing, limping, and just tiptoeing out there. I was walking on eggshells, given how hot the track was, and so on and so forth. It was all fire and brimstone out there. But hey, I enjoyed the splendor of being on the podium and everything. And right after the fact of Ian overtaking, I just, with every fiber of my being, I'm gonna try to get back Peter. But hey, I guess that didn't work out in the long run. Everybody's tires were dead. But nonetheless, I thoroughly enjoyed this race. A little bit of damage limitation and all that stuff. So hopefully come next time I can get something better than a P3 at least, because I'm tired of being on the podium. I won't lie to you.
No, fair enough. And I think this is your first podium here at the JSRA, so that was epic to watch, bro. As very excited for you there, and was rooting on board as much as I could without giving you the commentator's curse. So congrats there, brother. It was epic showing, and very excited to have you back.
Yep, tires are balding out there, but hey, to all the kids out there who dream the impossible, you can do it, man.
Anything is possible.
Yeah, man.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon. Thank you too.
No problem.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Michael McName finishing off P3 after an epic battle there with Mr. Ian Lance of Cayman. What an epic showing there. But we will have his biggest competitor for this race up next. Mr. Lance, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Ian, I mean, a series of unfortunate events there, bro. It did have a mixture of, a little bit of losing of the grip of the rear, and then, incidents with a driver where he lost control and maybe damaged your car. But basically, fight after fight, brethren, can you walk us through your race?
Well, this was a race that was really more focused on consistency. And I really felt like if I didn't have those incidents, I could have been, a whole lot better at it. But that's part of racing. It was fun. I'm sorry for anybody I entangled with. Actually, my car had no damage. I was very surprised.
Really? I did see, I think it was an incident with Mark. Was it you? It could be wrong, but anyways, what an epic showing. Can you talk us through that battle with you and Michael? Because here in the commentary booth, we were assuming that you would have maybe hoped to work together to catch back up to Thor, but then in the end, the fight just ensued for so long that he just bridged a gap between you guys. Can you walk us through what your thoughts were during that battle?
Yeah, absolutely. I really just wanted to say to Anthony, just stay behind me. I obviously have the pace on you. Let's catch Thor and then we can fight. But that didn't work out. And the truth is, after I got clear from Anthony, I was pulling Thor in about a second a lap. I wish I had more time.
It was unfortunate. We were watching that gap, but we did see the time a little bit. The fighting went on a little bit too long, unfortunately. But nonetheless, brethren, in our debut here at the JSRA in iRacing, that was an epic showcase of talent on both sides. The strategies clearly we need to work on a little bit more, but that was an epic showing. So congrats to you on P2.
Thank you very much, and congrats, Thor. Congrats, Anthony. Sorry that you weren't closer, Peter. I thought you were going to be there, and sorry, Jaden. Thanks, guys.
All right, Ian, thanks as well. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Ian Lance, who finished in P2 in the first round of our iRacing Formula 4 Championship. But up next, we race with him in the DAU Championship, GT3 Championship, and now he's racing with us here at the JSRA. Thor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Steven.
Thor, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, bro. Firstly, before, congratulations on P1, that you literally did not put one foot wrong. You capitalized on every incident and every opportunity that you could. I'd love to just hear your thoughts on how that race went and your thought process going through the race.
I gotta tell you, it was mostly consistency and luck, I want to say. I mean, Ian and Jaden, they both had an amazing pace. I had nothing for them, but just kept my nose dry, just kept going, and somehow won.
Well, consistency and pace does go a long way, so congrats to you, bro. I am happy. I was really happy to see you when you sent that entry in this morning. So once you sent that, once I saw that you were there, I immediately accepted it. So very excited to see what can happen. But any thoughts on this championship and what you expect?
I'm just so happy to see that there's such a good level of competition, and honestly, just really excited to see how it pans out. I really cannot imagine, but hopefully going to be able to talk to you more.
Definitely, man, and really, again, appreciative of you joining and excited to see what you can do. You were the talk of the town in the practice session, so for you to be the underdog and come out and win this race was an epic feat and a really pleasant showcase of your talent, man. So excited to have you and excited to see what you can bring in the next few rounds.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you too. And ladies and gentlemen, that was Thor Tullo. Again, race with him in the DAU GT3 series, one of a thorn in our sides, as his pace was just unrelenting. But that being said, does finish in P1 in round 1 of our Formula 4 Championship. We will see you again next week at the same exact time on Sunday at 1 p.m. Jamaica time for our practice session, as we will be visiting Road America. If you have any interest in joining, please feel free to send us a message on Instagram at JSRA Official. We're excited to have more drivers, especially drivers of the talent and caliber that we saw tonight. As always, I have been your host. It was it was funner than I expected. I thought my throat would have been a lot drier, especially with the amount of fighting that went on during this race. But as we said, we did run into a few technical difficulties, and we will make sure, especially with this level of racing, to have everything cleaned up and ready for you guys for next week. So we will see you back here on Saturday, actually, for the final round of the Chase Up Ace series here on our YouTube channel at 7:30 p.m. Jamaica time, as well as back here for Formula 4 on Sunday. Looking forward to it, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you soon. I've been your host, El Presidente, as they call me, and I am looking forward to more. We are coming up to as
man. So
there is a round.
outside. Oh yeah.
Let's try the switcheroo.
Yeah.
You came and failed the test, you met the best, expected chess, but got monopoly. I came and bought you out, I knocked you out, I cropped you out with no apologies. I am the hope, the heart, the fate, the spark, the one who will fulfill the prophecy. I just been counting, never lounging, climbing up mountains, bouncing back. Step in the ring, about you step back. They'll learn hot when I get on the track. I like it louder the most, watching all these sheep just buy down to the goat. If I can't decide, I'ma probably get both. We didn't celebrate, but right now I'm a toast, resurrected.
Here is Eastman going side by side with Jaden Harrison. Jaden Harrison took him on the inside, but Eastman says no and closes the door. But here he is now about to lose 2 positions heading into the penultimate corner. Now coming